Welcome back everybody to another YouTube video, and today's YouTube video I'm going to be explaining a bit more of the personal aspect of why I will not be re-enlisting in the United States Navy. All this is really meant for entertainment purposes and me explaining to you my reasons why I'm not going to be re-enlisting. So don't take this as like I'm banging on the Navy or that you shouldn't join the Navy, anything far from it. I'm just going to be explaining my experiences and why I don't think this would be a good fit for me. I'm hoping that explaining this in sort of a story perspective, I'll be able to help out anyone who's sort of on the bridge of whether if they should join or not, and maybe I can go ahead and light up some dark spaces that you guys may be wondering about. It all started in my last month of high school. I had the typical high school graduate mentality after graduation. I thought I would get into a good college and then find a good career and then live out the rest of my life from there. Well, it turns out when you don't apply for any colleges, you're not going to get into any of them. So I was pretty much confused on what I had to do next. Of course, I knew I had to do something to start making money. So I remember hearing my friend talking about joining the Navy the last month of high school, and I decided to kind of go into the recruiter's office and just see what all that was about. Well, before I knew it, I walked out of that building as an undesignated airman, and I was scheduled to leave later that summer. I picked up a job at Hollister to get a little bit of work experience, and afterwards I left for Pastures New on October 16th over to Great Lakes, Chicago, Illinois. It was there that I had my first encounter with military lifestyle, as we were all getting yelled at to wait in the line, waiting for the bus that would take us to boot camp. And I already didn't like that, and I saw that as like my first red flag that maybe this wasn't going to be for me. But then again, that was pretty much going to be the entirety of boot camp, and it was nothing that I hadn't researched on YouTube. So I pretty much just went along with it. After graduating boot camp, I then proceeded to go to A school, which is basically like a college where you kind of learn your rate, and then from there you get sent onto the fleet. So I graduated both of them, and I ended up going to the infamous duty station of Norfolk, Virginia. The problem with Norfolk is that it's just such a huge base. So for a new sailor like me who didn't have a car and didn't have any friends going into there, I was already at a social disadvantage. For the 4 months that I was there, it was the same schedule day in and day out. I would go into work about 6:30 in the morning, get out around 2 to 4 p.m., then I would go to Q80, which was basically like a YMCA. I would use their Wi-Fi to be on my phone for a bit. Then once that closed, I'd go to McDonald's because I didn't want to go to the ship yet. And then after about an hour there, I would go back to sleep on the ship in my little 2x6 foot rack and then do it all over again the next day. Now, even though this absolutely sucked, I didn't think too much of it, mostly because I realized I didn't have a car, so that was going to be like a huge reason why I wasn't going to be able to enjoy much of the things that Virginia had to offer. And also, I had my deployment coming up, so I had something to kind of look forward to. When mid-April came around, it was finally time for me to leave for deployment, and I was like, finally, right? Like, this is it. This is what I signed up to do. Like, I'm so hyped to do this. About 3 months into deployment, we finally came back, actually the day of my birthday on July 21st, and deployment was amazing. I enjoyed every single bit of it, and even my new job, which was catching jets literally 5 feet in front of me. Like, I would stand on the LA, and the jets would come like flying down and it would catch on this cable, and I'm not even joking, like it would be like 3 to 5 feet in front of me and you could just like feel the vibrations of it. I was super cool. I really enjoyed it. I even was able to go to a couple ports and I saw some incredible things. I really felt the authenticity of what it was to be a sailor. Like I actually felt like a lot of pride after that day. And then like immediately the next day I was going to be going on leave for 2 weeks, so I was extremely excited, like all around, like getting ready to tell my family the stories and everything. So you could say this was pretty much the pinnacle of my military career. And then I came back from leave. It was really hard coming back from leave knowing I wasn't going to see my family for potentially another 6 months to even a year. And it didn't help that I was pretty much thrown back into the same schedule I was in before I had left for deployment. Thankfully, this wasn't going to be too long because we only took about a month break in between deployments. So a month later, I was already back on the second half. I really started to miss my family even more. And I don't know why all of a sudden I started to feel these emotions. It kind of came as a shock to me. but it started to really show into my work. And because of that, they actually ended up taking me off from topside. Basically, topside means you work above decks and you get to see the sun every day and you get to watch these jets. And I loved really being outside. Well, they took me off that and they ended up putting me in a shiv damper. For those of you who don't know what a shiv damper is, it's basically this uninsulated metal room where there's a bunch of piping and valves all over you. It's something that, you know, you might see like a ghetto steampunk kind of vibe going on. And it's not a very happy place to be in, for sure. And since we were up in the high north, it was freezing pretty much every day. And basically you had to watch this piece of metal that would go side to side every time a jet would catch. And you just had to ensure nothing bad was happening. Now, I would be in there for hours each day, except for some Sundays. And I literally only got to see the sun about less than an hour per day because of this. I was served extremely questionable food because our rate wasn't allowed to go downstairs to eat at the galley because we just couldn't afford to waste that time since our flight schedule was pretty busy most days. And this went on for like 4 months. I would come into work at 7 a.m. I would go immediately into the shiv damper and I would start cleaning and setting up for flight ops. And then I would have flight ops all the way till about 8 to 10 p.m. staying in this metal room, barely seeing the sun, and then eating basically leftover food from the galley. And I would take breaks, but they were only about 15 to 30 minutes each at a time. And then after work, we cleaned and checked the equipment before we went off to our racks. And I wouldn't go straight to sleep. I would go work out like around 10 p.m. And then I would take a shower, come back to my rack to sleep around anywhere from 11 to 12 p.m. And then wake up at 7 a.m. and do it all again the next day. At the same time, because of the time zone differences and just the lack of time I was able to be on the phone because of my work, I wasn't able to make a lot of phone calls back home. So I rarely got to communicate with any family, friends, and even the girlfriend I had at the time. I did have email, but email just doesn't compare to actually hearing the other person's voice. The gym was one of the few things I pretty much had to look forward to every day. It was amazing going to the gym because whenever I would go, I actually was able to look over the entire water at night. And sometimes on a full moon, you know, you're up there doing bicep curls and you get to see the shimmering moonlight on the water. It was pretty cool, and that was one of the things really keeping me motivated. There are a few things that happened on the second half deployment that really made me grow a huge disdain towards the Navy. And I can say with confidence that those 3 days are pretty much the reasons, or the main reasons, why I just didn't want to re-enlist. The first was that my work center implemented this new policy where the shiv damp operators had to go into the engine rooms and help out the engine operators pretty much do all of their post-op. This didn't sit too well with the rest of us shiv damper operators because pretty much all of us were either an airman or below, and we already had to worry about cleaning our own equipment, so we really didn't like this new policy at all. Of course, we sucked it up, and whenever I would go into my engine room to help out the engine operator, I noticed that I was pretty much doing all of the labor-intensive work. I was picking up hydraulic fluid, wiping down tracks, pretty much wiping the walls, and the engine operator would just write some things down, turn a few knobs, and then that was pretty much all he would do, and then he would leave. Well, I was pretty annoyed by this, and I was like, well, he definitely had plenty of time left to help me. So when I brought this up to my LPO, who was a first class, I was immediately met with a rebuttal. His rebuttal was that I was an airman and I had to listen to my superiors no matter what. And I was thinking that maybe for the reason why they had this new policy was just so that everything can go by faster so we could leave earlier. But whenever I was done cleaning that engine room and I would go into the lounge to have a little break, I would see my engine operator there sitting on his ass for however long. He had to have been there for a while because, I mean, it was every night and he would just be on his phone chilling. And I really got mad at that. This led to a lot of arguments back and forth almost every other day. But, I mean, I was never going to win this one, mostly because I was only in E2 at the time. So there wasn't a whole lot that I could change. The next incident that happened that I would say really made me realize I did not want to ever work a 9-to-5 job was that one day I ended up skipping over my chain of command. I just had this one question about my career. I forgot what question it was, but I know that it wasn't a long one, and it was one that probably could have been answered in about a minute or less. I ended up going to the ship's career counselor, and my chain of command states that you're supposed to go to your divisional career counselor first, and then kind of go down a few more career counselors until you see the ship's career counselor. Yeah, I skipped all of them, and I went straight to get the answer from the horse's mouth. Now, when I got downstairs and I asked him this question, He did not answer it. The first thing he asked me was, well, where is your divisional career counselor? Have you asked him? I told him no, and the main reason why I didn't tell him was because I felt like I would trust the ship's career counselor most, and I didn't feel like our divisional career counselor just had the best interest for me because of things that I heard, and pretty much he didn't have a lot of good reviews, so to speak. Well, the ship's career counselor pretty much told me to go back upstairs and try again, and if he couldn't answer, then he would be more than happy to answer the question. I said okay, and we went about our ways, and I never ended up going to my divisional career counselor, and I just went back to my work center. Now, this wouldn't have been a problem, and it could have ended right there, but it turns out the ship's career counselor ended up calling my work center, and he apparently was furious. My senior chief LCPO called my first class LCPO, and I remember I was sitting in the shift damper, and he comes in and he's like, Fabian, like, what the hell did you do? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, senior chief just called me absolutely livid, like, and he wants you in the office now. I was so confused. I had no idea what I did. Like I said, I don't do anything out of the ordinary. I sit in a shift damper all day, so I was like, what could I have done? We end up walking into the office, and the second I get in, I immediately get chewed the fuck out. He's going on about how I skipped my chain of command, why did I do that? And then guess who's sitting right next to him the entire time? It is my divisional career counselor. I just felt so humiliated and helpless and confused all at the same time. When I explained to them why I did it, they pretty much just did not understand. In their eyes, I had to go through my chain of command, and I could not skip it for whatever reason. I was told not to do it again next time, and I just remember wanting to throw everything and everyone in that room. I was so mad. I just remember walking out of there like flabbergasted. I really couldn't believe that was why I got yelled at. And then the last big blow, I would say, to my morale overall in general was the last day of port call in London. I ended up buying this thimble that I was planning on gifting my girlfriend, mostly because of that whole Peter Pan friendship thing, whatever. But anyways, that last day we ended up breaking up. And this really took a big blow to me, and I don't think it would have if I was back home, mostly because my girlfriend at the time, that was about like the only support or emotional support I had left. She was the person that I vented a lot of things to that I felt like I couldn't vent to anybody else. So after that relationship ended, I felt completely alone. So the remainder of that deployment, I was stuck in this room and I was getting fed crappy food. I was living this Groundhog Day of a lifestyle. I just went through an extremely hard breakup, and at this point I had almost no motivation, like whatsoever. And honestly, I felt like I was almost ready to get kicked out for whatever, and it didn't matter what I did. I wanted to get out of the military. Anyways, come December, we finally got back just in time for Christmas, right when everyone was going home, but I decided not to go home. It was mostly due to the fact that I felt like I just wanted to be left alone. I kind of didn't want to see anybody. I started pushing away families and friends. I also used the $1,000 and up price ticket of a plane to go nationwide from Virginia to California to kind of sort of motivate me to follow through with that plan. So I spent Christmas and New Year's in McDonald's and Q80 for the remainder of that year. Now, I hadn't been home in 7 months, and again, I was thrown back into the monotonous schedule like before. However, in January, I discovered this YouTuber by the name of Grand Stefan, and I believe at the time he had a little less than 100,000 subscribers, even less than that, I think, like less than 70,000. He posted a lot about real estate, and I felt immediately immersed and captivated because I never thought of real estate of being a career up until that point. You see, I loved playing with Legos, so I loved like the idea of like seeing like really cool houses and all these intricate structures, but I didn't want to be an architect because I was shitty at math. So seeing real estate kind of was like, or this is extremely cool to me. And then not only that, but there was that business aspect of it, which I loved, like the entrepreneurship aspect, because I knew I hated the 9 to 5. I did not like a chain of command, and with real estate, you don't get that. So that was another part of it that I fell in love with. So altogether, it just felt like it was for me. From then on, I was researching the housing market and where I wanted to be a real estate agent. I was calling up real estate agents, asking how the business was and stuff that they would recommend for a new agent such as myself. And I just kept watching a lot of real estate videos and any other financial videos that kind of went with that. For the first time in a long time, I finally felt like I had something that I wanted to pursue. I finally felt like I had a purpose in life. My next deployment would be late August of 2019. And the time leading up to that point is where I lost all motivation. Even though I had something that I loved and I wanted to pursue, it didn't help to feel like I had nothing else to look forward to while I was in the military. I still hadn't seen my family, the breakup was still sort of weighing down on me. I felt like I was wasting my life away, and because of that, my creativity really started to stifle. This sort of leaked into my research for real estate and my finances. Not that I was spending more, but just that I didn't really care anymore, and I would just be on my phone towards like the last 4 to 7 months before I left for deployment. I just felt like I didn't want to do anything. Now, during the mid-months before deployment, we were underneath the new command of another LCPO. He was the final nail in the coffin. This chief was extremely strict. He would secure the lounge early. Hours got longer under him, and the whole work environment just started to feel really hostile. He had this thing where he said, if everyone just cleans, we'll get to go home early. That never fucking happened, ever. He would make us clean during our breaks. He would come in even during flight ops and making sure that we were cleaning instead of kind of just sitting around. So for months, I felt like I had this never-cracker looking dude breathing down my neck 24/7 while we were out doing kind of like workups and stuff before deployment. So I was pretty excited when I found out that I was going to be going cranking, which cranking is basically just you're doing a job that the military doesn't have. So, for example, washing dishes, there is no specific job to wash dishes in the military. So they take people from different work centers and they'll put them downstairs in the dishwasher galley area and they'll wash dishes or wipe down tables or something like that. Now, because I was probably an undesignated sailor, my work center just kind of forgot about me, and I ended up cranking for, instead of 4 months, almost a year. I cranked for about 11 months and 20-something days. During that time, I had zero care for anything. I would go into work late, I would talk back, I would leave work early. I mean, I was a real shitbag sailor, but I'm surprised because I never got sent up for doing any of that. I had no care in the world, and at that point, I really thought I was going to get like a dishonorable discharge, which I also didn't care. I even called up my family and I told them, hey, mom, dad, I'm probably going to be getting out of the Navy earlier than expected, so just a heads up. And like, I was ready to get out at that point. Then second deployment hit, and I felt like that was just rubbing dirt into the wound. For 60 days straight, we did not see one port at all. It was day in and day out of cleaning tables. I got moved to laundry, so I was doing other people's laundry. And I even found out later that chief I was talking about ended up talking shit about me behind my back through one of my friends and saying how I was like a quitter and I just didn't follow through with things, and that didn't help anything. And that was something else that I had a huge disdain towards the Navy, was that I never felt like I had a work center that I could sort of rely on, and I never felt like I served a true purpose in the Navy because I was an undesignated sailor. Then after 2 months straight of being out to sea, we finally hit our first port of Duqm, Oman, which was a joke of a port. I mean, pretty much once you get in there, it's a huge sandbox and there's a bunch of shipping containers in this kind of courtyard thing, and there's vendors inside of them that sell overpriced liquor and mediocre food. And I ended up just staying on the ship for all those 5 days that we were there watching movies and stuff on my laptop. I finally flew off the ship in February of 2020 because I finally picked up the rate AM, and I had to go to sea school to do a little bit of schooling before I got to my new command, which just so happened to be on my old ship. So I wasn't going to get away from my old command, if anything. But I figured, what else are you going to do to me? I'm just excited that I finally get out of being an ABE and working in the mess decks and laundry, and I wanted to start something new. Sea school was okay, and my new squadron was surprisingly a lot better than I expected. Since our ship pretty much we didn't know when it was going to be coming back into port. We had a part of the squadron on shore called Beach Jet, which I was a part of, and we weren't really doing anything. Even after when they came, there wasn't a whole lot to do, and even when there was work to do, I finally felt like I had a purpose and a meaning because I actually had a rate now. So overall, I was really happy during that time. I finally caught like a second wind of motivation, and I started wanting to get more quals. I wanted to get plane captain. I was impressing everybody and anybody that I met. I wasn't motivated enough to re-enlist, hell no, but at least I was motivated enough to finish staying in the Navy and just not really giving so much no care in the world, but at least trying to make the better of things. Well, 2 weeks in, after the rest of the squadron came back on shore, I was told I was going to be going to TAD again because my squadron had a new policy where all new sailors to the squadron have to go TAD, and this time the billet was going to be 6 months. At that point, that was it. My career was over. Did not care whatsoever. I was not going to give the Navy any more memory, nothing. No more quals. I was completely done and over it. All of a sudden, I felt like I was going to be worthless again, And as the day went on, surprisingly, I started to feel a little bit better because I realized that this new billet that I was sent to was a duty driver for supply, which has extremely favorable working hours, and a lot of people wanted to get sent TD there. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, with all the time off I'm going to have now, I'll be able to have more time now to pursue my interests, like researching the housing market, looking up more stuff up on real estate, doing more DoorDash to make more side money, and then pursuing YouTube. There's somewhat a happy ending to all of this, and that I got a girlfriend. I am now receiving BH and BAS, and I'm living in my own apartment. I got a little kitten. So life overall now is going well. Still TAD, but at this point I'm pretty much safe in saying that this is probably going to be the rest of my life until I get out in October of 2021. So whenever people ask me sort of kind of like where I am in my military career, I pretty much like to tell them that I feel like I'm in retirement. I haven't heard anything about going to my squadron anytime soon, and it's been over 6 months now. So time will tell to see what really happens. But in the meanwhile, my mind is now more focused on becoming a real estate agent, setting myself up for success once I get out, and saving as much money as possible. Now, when someone ever asks me, yo, Fabian, how come you're not going to re-enlist, bro? I just tell them that I just don't have an interest for it anymore and I'm ready to move on. I'm tired of feeling that I'm always going to be underneath someone, even if I was to make second or first class. There's always going to be someone in a higher position that is going to tell me what to do and when to do it. I was tired of being away from my friends and family, and even though I didn't know that I was a family man, it turns out I guess I really am, and I hate being away from home for so long. I've missed out on birthdays, weddings, especially a lot of holidays, considering that the last holiday season that I spent with my family was the holiday season of 2016. So it's been close to 4 years now where I haven't spent a holiday season with my family, either because I was on deployment or the plane tickets were just ludicrously expensive. But the main reason why I'm not re-enlisting is just I feel like I've been wasting my youth years. I mean, the real benefits that I'm going to get out of this is the VA home loan and maybe the work experience, if that, because I really got no work experience. Other than that, if I had to remake the choice, I never would have joined the military. There was this one time where I really was on leave and I went into this jewelry store. I just wanted to get my watch refitted, and me and the jeweler there started to kind of talk and get to know each other better. And he actually ended up offering me a sales job right there on the spot. And I had to turn it down, obviously, because I told him, no, I'm sorry, I'm in the military. I can't really take that. He's like, oh no, it's all good. Just kind of curious to see if you wanted a job here. And that always stuck with me because I felt like, well, what other opportunities did I miss just because I was in the military? So I'm tired of spending my youth somewhere where I feel like I'm not going to get any more benefit from staying in. So because of that, I'm out. If you were able to make it to the end of this video, thank you so much, and that means you're one of the real fans out there, and I'm a proud sailor because of it. Don't forget to sink that like button, and I appreciate you so much for, again, staying until the end. Hit that subscribe button, and don't let me scare you from joining the military, because it could be a wonderful experience, and I do have positives because of joining the military. But like I said, those experiences are my experiences, and they're probably not going to be yours. So with all that being said, I will see you guys next time.